Just real quick before we kind of get going into it, like, what was it that got everyone interested in coming out tonight?
My friend.
Your friends?
I pushed her.
Yeah, okay, so you're tag team, don't
I
say, yeah. Okay, so I should ask Crystal then, what is it that you got interested in wanting to come here today?
Yeah, I think it's important to know more about nutrition.
Yeah, definitely good,
Yeah,
yes,
there's just the theme, you know, you're talking
Mhm.
about moving,
yeah,
longevity and health
Yeah.
and, yeah.
cool, yeah, what are some other ideas? All good stuff so far.
There's a lot of information out there, but there's always that one thing that's missing.
Yeah,
That's what I'm hoping to do.
yeah. And if you don't mind me asking, where do you kind of get some of that information?
Oh, just the internet.
Internet,
Yeah.
Google,
Yeah,
Facebook, that kind of
exactly.
stuff. The checkout line on ShopRite, where you see like lose 30 pounds in 30 days by doing this, that kind of thing. What are some other thoughts? Anything else? No, just needed something to do on a Tuesday afternoon, Tuesday night. All right, so
No, I've gained at least 15 pounds over the last couple of years. And
Okay.
it keeps coming on, and it's like, I want to do something about it.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
just,
everybody has.
and not sit with my feet up and watch
Yeah. Okay.
Netflix and everything like that.
Yeah, right on. So all good things and all stuff that for the most part we're able to cover today. I think Chris, you mentioned nutrition, right?
Yeah.
We can talk more about stuff at the end, but just the main focus on this one is going to be more activity based. So if you have questions on that, we can definitely talk about that. So I'll leave time for like question and answer session, but I just want you to not be like waiting on the edge of your seat, being like, when's nutrition coming? When's nutrition coming? Okay, so everything else right on point. I guess we'll get started here. So thank you guys all thank everyone for coming out tonight. My name is Tim Styro, and what I'm gonna go over you guys today is how you all can live strong and kind of gather some information to help you just feel better and kind of master that art of disease prevention through active choices. A lot of us want to be healthy, want to have high quality of life, but sometimes we don't know how to start that, how to do that, but also how to incorporate it into our routines already. So that's the whole point, the whole mindset. I kind of want everyone to be in this presentation here. Everything that we're going to go over today is going to be practical, realistic, and most importantly, sustainable. Right? Something that everybody can kind of start doing as soon as tonight or tomorrow, just to start living, life that is more active. So here's a little bit of what I alluded to. Like I said, kind of show you how to ultimately live better and more active. So what I want to show you today is how to take control of your long-term health, give you guys actionable steps to take, reduce those chances and those risks of lifestyle-related diseases. And we'll go unpack what those kinds of things are, but a key phrase I want you to think about and see a lot of is I'll use the word reduce. Unfortunately, we can never 100% prevent. We can never 100% get rid of these kinds of things, but we can drastically reduce our chances of getting them by having some simple steps and some simple habits to incorporate into our day-to-day routine. After this, right, once I'm done here, probably by tomorrow, I'll give you all a copy of the slide so you have something to look back on, so you have something to reference, right? Don't expect everybody to memorize everything. It's not a pop quiz, and it's, as Lad, you alluded to already, there's so much information out there, and our brains have a hard time remembering everything when there's not just stuff you're trying to think about for your health, but also your job, your work, your family, your hobbies, and own interests. That takes up a lot of noise in our head. So kind of don't think that you have to memorize everything. You'll have a way to kind of look back at some of this stuff. And then one last point here. This is strictly educational purposes, not a medical provider. I like to think of myself as a nerd who likes to work out. So I read a lot, went to school and all that stuff. But ultimately, this is kind of to help educate you all here today about what you can do to help live those more active lives. And then before I move on, if you guys have questions, you can just ask right as they come up. I know myself, when I'm in your shoes, I have a question and they say wait till the end, but then I forget about my question. So if you have questions, I want to make this more of a conversation versus just a lecture kind of stuff. So just go ahead and ask as soon as you have that question, all right? So I'm assuming you all want to keep the health that you do have, right? Nobody wants to lose it. high quality of life comes from having high health and being more able to do more things. Friends, families might want to do different things, so we want to be able to have those opportunities and options. So real quick about me, this guy right over here. So I have a master's in exercise science. I went to William Patterson, where I'm now teaching one of their classes now as part of their exercise science department. I didn't know exactly that I wanted to do this kind of stuff, but I got into it because it was always a part of my routine ever since high school, and now I kind of want to help people build that into their own lives now, because it's something that I've got a lot of value from, not just from the physical attributes, from help with sports performance and strength and health, but just mentally having more confidence in oneself and having the ability to know that I'm doing things that are going to last a lifetime and kind of helping people create that lifestyle for them in a way that they enjoy. Just like some other stuff in here, certified nutrition coach, strength and conditioning. I've been in the business of fitness and wellness for 5 years. And I think out of everything that's on here, the thing that I've learned the most from are those 5 years of experience. Those 5 years of really learning from people what they care about and what matters to them, and how to relay this information in a way that sticks with them. So enough about me. So, I want you to imagine, has anyone seen the movie The Matrix?
I'm sorry.
The Matrix? Have you ever seen the movie The Matrix at all? No? Red and blue pill, that kind of thing? So, I want you to just imagine that if there was a pill that you could take that would reduce your chances of getting sick, that would reduce your chances of getting things like heart attacks, strokes, diabetes, that type of thing, and even upwards of 10, 20, 30%. Would you take it? Show of hands. You said no? Dorothy says no, absolutely not. Why not?
I'm happy with what I have.
Ah, okay. So what if I were to say that pill is exercise?
I do with that.
Good, good. So you're on the right track. So I would say Dorothy's already taken the pill. So,
But isn't medication you take for high blood pressure, cholesterol, aren't those considered medications that would reduce your risk of heart attacks?
yes, yeah, it definitely would. This is more like just an abstract way to think about it.
Okay.
But yeah, exactly. A lot of those things that we can talk more about stuff as we go on. But that stuff, people are prescribed those for specific reasons, and a lot of times they kind of make it easier for people to start incorporating the things we're going to cover into their routine, because it makes it a little bit easier for them to get started with that. Does that make sense?
So those percentages would go up
Reduce your risk of
if you
yes,
exercise
and take a
medication.
magic pill. Exactly. Go away.
What's in the pill?
Fun, enjoyment, and a little bit of hard work and sweat.
Oh, I'll take it.
Yeah, let's go. So when we're talking about lifestyle-related diseases, I was under the impression before I got a little bit more educated on these kinds of topics through reading and watching and just self-educating in school as well. I thought it was just bound to happen. I thought it was just luck of the draw. I know my family members, friends, uncles, anybody else I could think of would say, oh, I got high blood pressure, or I have diabetes, or I have atherosclerosis, hardening, and the plaque development in the arteries. I thought it was just bound to happen. Genetics, either you're gonna get it or you're not. But after realizing and doing a little bit more educating, getting taught by some professors, it does make sense that we do have some power in that to avoid those things. So it's not just luck of the draw, it's not just chance. There is some things that we can do that are gonna either, unfortunately, increase those chances of getting that, but also decrease our chances of getting those things as well. And a couple of just things here, right? Well, about 50% of Americans don't get enough physical activity, which is unfortunately half the population. And increased activity levels can bring about, just some numbers, 35% reduction in your risk of just death overall, which is a pretty big number, pretty big statement, but it kind of shows the importance of how valuable something like this is to do, not just for a week or a month, but also throughout your entire lifetime. And then we have some other things of just being more specific, cardiovascular disease risk goes down as well. So, moral of the story, and on all honesty, I'm sure a lot of you people have seen and know this already, but more activity decreases risk, less activity is going to increase your risk. And I don't say that, and I hope that doesn't mean like, oh, I have to start running marathons now. Like, no, like, you just have to start incorporating little things here and there. That's going to be something that you can do into your everyday routine. Just to kind of highlight some of these numbers and stuff here, I like visuals. Pictures help me kind of really hammer home a point. So on this left, this is kind of the self-reported physical inactivity. So number of states that are red have a lot of inactivity. So states such as Texas, Florida, Georgia, Tennessee, Nevada, not a lot of activity goes on. However, states like California, Pennsylvania, Maine, all have a little bit more activity than those states. On the right here, over this side, we can see that this is physical activity among adults 18 and over. And the bottom here, we have 46.3% meant neither the aerobic exercise and the strengthening and resistance training exercise. So think aerobic exercise for the heart and the blood. Think strength training exercise for the muscles and the joints. So 46% meant neither, and then about 22 meant just the aerobic, 24% meant both aerobic and strength, and then 6% just meant just the strength. So just what you can see in the point to make on this is this big number here. Most people unfortunately meet neither. So I've used the word lifestyle-related diseases so far. Some of these might be familiar to you. I'm just going to kind of list out the ones that, when I was doing readings and research for this presentation here, things that stood out the most. You have cardiovascular disease, which is a big number. Unfortunately, it does affect a large amount of population, especially in the United States, almost half, if not half. High blood pressure, another more common one where it's again about half the population. Atherosclerosis. These sound familiar? Do you guys know what these are? A little bit of a yes, a little bit of no. Yeah, heard the terms before. So these are kind of the more common cardiovascular and heart blood-related diseases that are out there. Affects a large amount of people. We have obesity, which again, these are unfortunate statistics, but it also showcases how real and prevalent these things are. And how it's important to be aware that, okay, you don't have to fall into this. You can kind of do some things to get out of this number and kind of start building your own path, if you will. So 36% of the population is classified as obese. Diabetes, 38.4 million Americans do suffer from it. Osteoporosis, which is the degradation and weakening of bones. 12.6% of all adults. This is more prevalent in women as we get older, as women get older, more common in that than men. And then cancer, even though emerging evidence is always evolving here, there is some more coming out that lifestyle choices can reduce the risk of some cancers as well. And then last one, Alzheimer's and dementia. Risk does increase with age, but the more activity you're doing, the more the brain's getting some energy and some blood flow, oxygen, and just staying healthier and staying active. So there's some, again, emerging evidence and support to the notion that Alzheimer's and dementia risk can be reduced as well. Am I talking too fast, or am I? You guys can hear me okay?
Yeah.
So like I said before, physical activity will never 100% prevent or cure, but can greatly reduce. To Adrian's point before, like medications such as blood thinner, blood pressure medication, right? Can be a tool for somebody, but to make sure that that's doing enough of a job and that person's making long-term change that's going to last forever, that's where the lifestyle modifications and the activity come into play. So we're talking about how much do we need to do, how often do we need to do it. This is where we're going to get a little bit more into some action items and action steps. So burning 1,000 calories more per week than you're currently doing has a reduction of 20 to 30% in all-cause mortality, which is a fancy, sciencey, boring way to say just prematurely dying. And what this number might sound like a lot, right? Your hip okay?
I have a problem with my hip.
Okay. Do you need a different setup, like a different chair?
No.
You okay?
I'm thinking of.
But 1,000 1,000 calories per week might sound like a lot, but if you break it down and kind of look at it day by day, 1,000 calories comes to about per week about 145 to 150 per day, which can be done by a couple walks, maybe some a yoga class at the local library, a local YMCA, or something that just gets you moving for like anywhere from 30 to 60 minutes. Becoming and importantly staying fit, and these are the things where we're talking about how to be sustainable, right? This is going to greater reduce those chances of having these things come back in the future, because you don't just do it for a short amount of time. You're not doing it for 6 months. You hit if, let's say for example, because this is what I see a lot in the gym that I work out of, people come in because they want weight loss, they want to lose weight, they want to feel stronger, feel better. Perfectly valid and perfectly good reason to, am I blocking this? Perfectly good reason to want to make some kind of change, but what happens after you hit your goal weight? What happens after that? Now that we're hitting a weight that we might be happier with, now we have to make these changes to last, to stay and consistent, so we can continue to live high quality of life and continue to stay healthy as we just continue to move on. And then I like this one a lot because I think this is, again, simple, something that people can do pretty regularly. Just walking an hour per day reduces the risk of those cardiovascular diseases by upwards of 29%.
When you say an hour per day, is that in addition to your just everyday walking and doing things here and there, running errands and such?
So good question. So in a couple slides, there's going to be a more clarification on that point. But for that one, it's just an hour per day of non-everyday activities. So a dedicated, like 30 minutes here, 30 minutes there, as opposed to just your regular stuff throughout the day. Now again, if you're not doing anything and you just get up and do an hour more of something, that's always better than what you were doing. So towards the end of this, it's less about doing it to meet these standards and just focus on how you can be better than you were yesterday.
But when you say an hour, is that based on speed also, or just, I mean, if you're going very slow, it's an
Yeah.
hour, but you're running less than if you go really fast in an hour.
Yeah, so
So what's the gauge here?
I would say the gauge is your current fitness level, and you can track that with like heart rate. So if you get up and you do an hour walk, and your heart rate's like really elevated, you might be walking at a pace that's a little too fast because the heart's beating like, hey, like we're working hard here to really get that blood to move around so it can go to the muscles. But if you're more fit, more in shape, maybe you've been active for a long time, but let's say you just had a baby and now you're just getting back in shape. You might not be the same extent as that person, but you might be a little bit lower, so you might be having to just reacclimate yourself a little bit more. So to your point of what's the gauge, heart rate is kind of where you can find that gauge and determine if it's super high after a 30-minute walk, either slow down, or maybe do a little bit less distance in time, and then work your way back up.
So the goal is always an hour.
At least some way, shape, or form, right? So an hour a day, and this is where it's funny you say that, because this is where years of experience can come into play, because now it's like, okay, if you're working from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m., where you can fit that hour. So that's where we start doing other things to account for those times where you're lacking, and that's called non-exercise activity, and that's something that's going to come up in a couple slides. But good point, though.
Thanks.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes. So just a little bit more stuff on how, kind of like the power that exercise has on these lifestyle-related diseases. So diabetes, increasing your calories burned, and that's just overall thing, calories burned, just activity you're doing. So calories, you've probably heard calories from food, right? Like calories containing in a sandwich, or a slice of chicken, or that kind of stuff. It's just energy. It's a measure of energy. So when you see calories on these slides, if they come up and when they come up again, just think more energy you're burning. So increasing the calories being burned from 500 per week, increasing your calories burned by 500 per week can be a good way to reduce those risks even more. So again, it's just kind of doing more than you currently were doing. Maintaining healthy body weight also has a big impact on that as well. And then we're seeing a little bit more people who are doing more research in this field, that certain cancer rates, I think specifically colon cancer, had a little bit more reduction with physical activity in people getting diagnosed with cancers. Osteoporosis, specifically with lifting weights and resistance training, so moving our bones and moving our muscles, that's where a lot of the benefit for bone health is going to come from. And then lastly, Alzheimer's and dementia. Those that do stay physically active and are physically active tend to have better scores on cognitive testing. So memory recall, critical thinking, and those types of tests. So ultimately, with this kind of stuff, you do have the power to make some positive changes. I'm going to walk this way so I don't block the screen. But you do have the power to make some positive changes, and you do have the power to actually kind of control your health and not feel that it's up to chance that, oh, if my father got this, or my mother, my uncle on my side of the family got this, now it's bound to happen for me. That's not necessarily the case. So here are some of the exercises, factors that might contribute to people not getting enough physical activity. And I'll say that all of these are pretty valid. I've worked with a lot of people over the years, and there's more I could add to this list, but I think this is a good starting point. So some of it is just lack of knowledge, right? If you see a lot of things out there, you might think everything's right, or you might think everything's wrong. So you don't have that opportunity to really figure out, like, what should I be focusing on if I have someone like me telling you one thing, but then maybe 2 weeks later you have someone else doing the exact same thing, and they might say something a little bit different. So you might have to figure out, like, what's the middle ground, and how do I figure out how to put this in, and what should I really be focusing on? And that kind of leads into these 2 points here. This just feels overwhelming, and you feel like you just don't want to do anything because you're so confused. And paralysis by analysis, is that term new for anybody? It's kind of a saying that people, yeah. So basically that means that you're doing so much thinking of trying to figure out what the heck to do that you just feel stuck, right? So it's like, so many, if you imagine, you know, like maybe like your parents, when you didn't make your room, or clean your room, or make your bed, were just yelling at you 24/7, make your bed, and you just stay there, right? You just don't do it because you're annoyed, because you're just tired of them yelling and screaming at you. Kind of similar thing, where your brain's just like making you feel stuck because there's just so much information that you don't know what to do with it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And then we have other ones, right? Financial factors, location. Maybe you don't have a gym in your area. We're talking about like suburbia versus like rural counties and cities. Different available resources for people to do that. And you can find places like gyms or yoga studios. And we have psychological factors, what someone's perception is of exercise. And how can we make them realize that it doesn't always have to be going to a gym and driving and going into a place that might be intimidating, but we can make these changes, excuse me, just by doing stuff outside or within the community that might be a little bit more enjoyable for them. So ultimately, there's many reasons why people might have hesitations, and ultimately, these all here kind of validate some of the reasons people might have as to why there is such a discrepancy and there is not a high amount of general physical activity within the country, and why some of these lifestyle-related diseases are in fact so high. So next up here, we're going to go over some of these specific types of exercises. Types of exercise, we're going to look at how long, how to do them, and what are some examples. So here are the questions that we're going to kind of go over. Like I said, how do you get started if you've never done it before? What type is best, if there is even a best? How long should you exercise for? What's the goal? Difference between aerobic, like I said, aerobic, then so cardiovascular. Strength training, we're thinking resistance training, so moving our body through a resistance, and that's going to be more for the muscle and the joints. I'm sorry, what's your name?
Liz?
Liz. Judy. You're Judy, yes. Liz. So like Liz said, asked a question about, you know, how much is an hour? Is it an hour on top of everything else? That kind of thing. In my opinion, I would say yes. I think an hour a day is a really good, like kind of almost is like a guarantee to have a significant impact. But we also have to be realistic on time constraints and your lifestyle constraints, where maybe you have to maybe only do a half hour. But a half hour is still better than zero. And that...
No, because you're talking specifically about walking.
Yeah.
But what other activity, I mean, swimming, I know.
Yes.
So would compare to walking, or is walking the
So,
Big one or?
I would say it's a good clarification question. Walking, think of it as an example. Walking being thought of as an example. There's other things out there, which will be, I believe, the next slide. So like swimming, cycling, Pilates, that kind of stuff. So the walking is an example specifically for that. But bringing it back to what Liz said, if you can only do a half hour, you can only do a half hour, whether it's swimming, whether it's biking.
Yeah.
And it gets a little murky when we're talking about like what the science research says, but also how do I apply that to real life? And that's where the years of experience that I've had kind of like find that point where it's like, okay, you have 30 minutes that you can do for walking. If all you can do is 2 miles on the treadmill or a mile on the treadmill, 100% take that over you not doing anything. Does that make sense? On both your points, does that make sense? So we have what's called NEAT, which is non-exercise activity thermogenesis. And we're talking about physical activity, we're talking about on a day-to-day basis, think of this as your daily routine. So think of this as the walking you're doing, like I'm doing right now. Right? I'm not sitting in a chair, I'm not behind a computer. As I'm up and about, my muscles are engaged, my heart's pumping, my lungs are breathing, and I'm doing these things, and I'm burning energy as I do it. So this is enhanced not just with some of these risk reductions, but also just enhanced well-being. If I'm moving around more, if I'm out and about, tend to have a little bit more, I don't want to say the word happiness, because can be a lot that goes into that, but just overall better sense of awareness, sense of self, just overall well-being. So this is, like I said, walking at your job. This could be parking farther away from the store. This is a big one. I see some head nods as I say that one. So if you're going to ShopRite or Stop and Shoppers, somewhere after this, instead of parking at the closest spot, park farther away. You can get more steps in that way. And what I love about these things is you don't have to dedicate extra time to do that. Because if you're someone who is on a tight schedule, you only have, let's say today you're super busy, you can't dedicate a half hour, an hour to a treadmill walk or cycling or swimming, but I can take the long way around the block. I can take a phone call with a coworker or a meeting, maybe on the phone, right? If I don't need to have a video camera up, or if that's something that can be doable. Also, some things like taking the stairs. I've had people where every hour you're going to walk up and down the stairs 4 times while you're at your job. Right? This way, it's just practicing good habits and finding ways to stay active. Because unfortunately, a lot of the contributions still come from us sitting the majority of the time. Now, that doesn't mean that sitting is terrible for you. It's unfortunately a way of life. But I think that just means we have to be a little bit more aware, a little bit more cognizant of how do I overcome that? How do I kind of undo that? By taking the stairs, standing, that kind of stuff. Do I have dogs?
So it's true that you learn more by standing up, not sitting down.
Yeah.
And of course, walking more than standing.
Yep.
So
And then also too, I like this story. This is a story of my dad. So he was told by his doctor that he had to start exercising more. He's got some pretty bad knees, gained some weight, kind of that, and he's in his like 58 now. So a very common situation. So he was like, okay, he's still very committed to his job, definitely a workaholic. He also doesn't like lifting weights, doesn't like that kind of stuff. So he got a bike that has a desk on it. So if you can imagine this, kind of on a stationary bike. So he's taking his emails, his calls while he's laying back and he's pedaling up and down like that. I'm like, that's genius, right? Walking treadmill, very similar thing, but allows you to get some activity in and kind of killing 2 birds with 1 stone. And when it comes about trying to find ways to how can I get more active in your routine, that's kind of the goal line that you want to look for. How can I do what I need to do, but also get more activity, burn more calories, get more steps in throughout that. So if you're going to walk in the dog, you can take the dog a little bit longer, wrap around the block. Maybe just play with them a little bit more. We have a puppy at home still, and she's crazy all the time. They wear you out. They get you out of breath when you're trying to chase them in the backyard or tug of war with the rope. So those things, even though they might sound small, they can do some things to get you thinking a little bit differently. So aerobic exercise. So this is cardiovascular health, this is heart health, blood health. And I think of aerobic exercise as something that elevates the heart rate in like a rhythmic, cyclical, and often continuous manner. So by that definition, something like swimming, like cycling, something like a walk or like jog, that kind of stuff would fit that bill and fit that definition of aerobic exercise. And that can be scaled and that can be done in different ways. Now, these don't, like I said, have to be specifically followed every single detail, but it's just something to know, okay, how can I do the best that I can to increase my chances of being the healthiest I can be, not just from, internal health, but also quality of life and muscles and bones and joints. So everything kind of fits into this. So we have walking, running, bike riding, swimming, and if we're looking at guidelines to shoot for, the recommendations tend to be about 150 minutes per week, which can be broken up in a various amount of different ways. So 150 minutes can look like 3 days, 50 minutes, could be 5 days, 30 minutes, it could be either combination of the two. So if we're looking at something to shoot for, especially something that kind of keeps our heart rate at a comfortable pace, not where you're huffing and puffing, not where it's like super difficult for you, something like that could be a good option for you, whether it's any one of those things that we had mentioned and talked about already.
But one has to learn what options are good for you. For example, if someone has a bad hip or bad knees,
Yep,
that gets in the way, so that
It
becomes
does.
tricky.
it does. Don't mean to single you out there, Dorothy, but no, it's good. It's a good point because you do have to find out what's going to be the best for me and my body, my interests, my injury history. So things like swimming.
That's what the paralysis is.
But exactly, but it's very true.
Yeah.
Bless you.
Thank you.
But things like swimming or water aerobics, that kind of stuff that can get you
It's
easier on the joints. You're weightless in a way. The water's kind of holding you up. There's also things in our exercise science lab. We have I just think this is cool, but we have what's called an anti-gravity treadmill. So they use it a lot for rehabilitation and for like studying gravity and how we walk and movement and stuff. But it basically takes the gravity out, so you're kind of like walking on the moon in the treadmill. It's really cool, but it's something where if let's say you have bad knees or you have a bad hip or something where you just can't do it on the road, like walking, maybe you can't do swimming for whatever reason or any kind of water aerobics. That might be something where you have to be really lucky for a place to do that, but that's kind of the ultimate end of the extreme. But it's just some stuff that are out there. And there's also various amounts of different types of yoga, types of Pilates, types of even like bar classes, like the holding the bar and that kind of stuff, where you might be able to take your weight off of one leg, but you're still able to move. And ultimately, it's just the movement that has such a big, profound impact. And that's kind of like what this slide here you just kind of talked about is know your options. It's like know what's out there. Google search maybe best aerobic exercise for knees or bad knees, or if you have bad knees, hips, that kind of stuff. So that makes sense? Yeah. So we said 150 minutes per week, and then we have also this number here, which is 75 minutes. So this 75 minutes kind of relates to more intense activity. So this is something where it would be a little bit harder for you to do. So we talked a little bit about that heart rate kind of thing. So think of this as like if my heart rate is, let's say my heart rate max, so the max level of my heart rate is, easy math, we'll say 200. Let's say if I do a 45 swimming session or a 45 water aerobic session, my heart rate's at, let's say, 130, 150. That's not relatively that high compared to something like a 200. It's doable, it's at a sustained pace, you might be able to have a conversation with that, you won't be huffing and puffing. But let's say we do something where you're playing tennis, or playing real intense pickleball match. Who plays pickleball? Nobody? No one's pickleball athletes here?
Not anymore.
What's that?
Not anymore.
Not anymore? Oh no. But let's say you're playing some type of game, or maybe you're playing with somebody or doing something and your heart rate's getting a little bit higher than you'd like. That might classify as something that's a little bit more intense. And something that's more intense doesn't need to be done for as long. So that's why you'll see a shorter time for something that's higher intensity. So if you go to like a spin class where they're going crazy, music's blasting, you're sweating, the person on the screen in front of you is really going like all out, that might be something where you don't need to do as much, depending on, I see Crystal shaking her head, no. Have you done those before?
A little bit.
A little bit here and there. But that's something where, because it's more intense, might be something where you don't need to do as much. But the biggest thing is kind of know your options and know what fits. So if we're looking at how do I actually get started, right? What do I need to do? What steps can I take? Well, first and foremost is, I think people miss this one a lot. It's so simple, but it's also super important. Know and decide which days you can actually do something on. If you want to go ahead and start incorporating more of these things in your routine, and you're like, you don't know what your schedule looks like, you might just not know where it's going to fit. But if you have an idea, if I know Wednesday is a super busy day, I'm not going to set myself up for failure and try to exercise on a day I'm not going to be able to. But if I know I have, let's say, an hour block open, and I know I can maybe get in a workout in, a class, or a walk-in, let's say before work at 7:30, I can do it that way. So just kind of knowing where this fits, so you're not just winging it every single time. Decide how long. That's another factor too. If you are driving to places, factor in time, factor in the distance it's going to take. You might have to get ready, get cleaned up, take a shower before work if it's something like that. So these are kind of things that it's not really fancy. It's not really super exciting, but this is the stuff that helps make it sustainable and helps it actually fit into your routine. Taking like 5 minutes just to look at your schedule the next day. Can I fit a half-hour walk in here somewhere? If it's brand new, no exercise history, this is brand spanking new, start easy, 15, 30 minutes, and just keep stacking wins after wins after wins and being consistent with it. I always like to tell people I'd always rather you continue to add versus you shoot too high and have to take away. I think psychologically that might be a little bit of like feel like you're defeating yourself and feel like you're losing. So I'd always tell people, start small, continue to add. And then progress by making it challenging over time. We're talking aerobics, so again, being that it's I'm gonna use that heart rate example again. If let's say we're doing something for 30 minutes, our heart rate's a little high at first, but 2 weeks go by, it feels easier. I don't feel like I'm working as hard, or heart rate's going down as I'm doing this. Now my body's getting more in shape. So now I can go ahead and make it more challenging by maybe going from 30 minutes to 40 minutes. I can maybe walk a little bit faster. I can maybe increase or change up the terrain, so I'm walking up some hills, that kind of stuff. Question?
I believe I've seen something, it's like a wraparound weight that people put on their legs or their arms.
The ankle weight, yeah.
Okay.
So very similar thing, right? Something like
So
that.
it has more resistance, I would think.
Exactly, and that's ways you can do it. A lot of people will wear like a weighted backpack.
Oh,
Yep, so like a weight, it almost looks like a bulletproof vest, and it has weights into it. It can be right on here, so if I'm walking like this, it looks just like a backpack, and it's added resistance, and that resistance makes your body work harder because it's not used to that. So that's another way where we're being able to add more of a challenge. And what I like about that kind of stuff is, I'm big on the time and the being convenience. If I only have 30 minutes and I need some way to challenge myself, I can throw the weights on, I can throw a vest on if that's what someone wants to do. And now within that 30 minutes is now going to be more challenging. So it's kind of like using with the tools and resources I have without trying to go crazy and trying to do something that's causing me to take more time away from something else.
and it comes in different weights, I would think.
Yeah, yep. I don't know the maximum amount of weight that it can be, because I think there's a point where it's,
You want to go gradually anyway.
yeah, but I think if you have like 30, 40 pounds on your ankle weights, then you're just gonna be wobbling around. So I think there's a limit of like before it starts, you have to change how you're walking. And that might be like 5, it might be 8 or 10 or something like that. But that's a good example of how to make it more challenging. So that's some aerobic stuff. Now we're looking at strength training. So strength training, also known as resistance training. And this is exercise where we're moving our body through some type of external or internal resistance. So like I said, this helps really preserve and keep muscle function, keeps your bones strong. Also, if you're going to a gym and doing something like this as part of a group class, it provides a sense of community. And this goes for both of them too, but I found that people who do these things together in small groups, group classes, you start getting friendly with people, gets you out of the house in a way, gets you meeting new people, and ultimately it helps consistency because you don't want to let other people down. If you've been working out with someone for 2 weeks, you don't want to all of a sudden not show up because you want to see them and they want to see you. But also, you might want to be a little more competitive and want to beat them. So now you want to keep showing up to try to beat them at their own game. So just some things there to keep in mind. So, So when we're looking at strength training, right, there's a lot of different ways we can do this, and ultimately, we're taking our legs, arms, hips through a motion where we're trying to push against or pull against something. And we want to start with something that's maybe like 1 to 3 sets, and a set is a collection of repetitions. So if I do, let's say, a shoulder press, I'm going to write it, if I was working a group, like writing a group workout for everybody here, let's say we do 3 sets of 15 shoulder presses, resting 2 minutes in between each one. It would be up and down 15 times. That's set 1, then we rest for 1 to 2 minutes. We do 15 again, boom, boom, rest for 2 minutes, and then do the last and final set of 15 repetitions. Does that make sense? I know sometimes people see these things, and I've been under the assumption that everybody knows what they mean, but sometimes it's helpful to be reminded or taught these things. But similar to the aerobic example, as you get in better shape, as you continue to do this, your muscles are going to get stronger. Your muscles are going to get used to whatever you were doing. Now you have to make it more challenging so your body can continue to adapt. And this goes into one of the points I highlighted before, where people who not just get in shape, but stay in shape, have greater potential to increase their risk reduction of these lifestyle-related diseases. So as I continue to get stronger, that fitness level goes up, and that risk of getting these diseases continues to go up because my body is in better shape and better equipped to handle anything it throws at you. So like resiliency is another word that I like to think about when it comes to kind of getting stronger for life. So here's, can everybody see that okay? Right, so it's a little tough to see, but I have a resistance band. So the resistance band is pulling me in the opposing direction. This is an example of like a resistance style training workout. So pulling down different motions, pressing, pulling. This is just a visual example for you guys to see it. We got some shoulder exercises, some leg exercises, some different motions for our hips, some leg exercises, and upper body exercises. So these are a variety of different movements that you can do, and you can go ahead and do those with weights or bands. Here's just a simple body weight one. So body weight also acts as a resistance that we're trying to move against to help increase our strength. So we have, again, hip exercises. We have some elevated push-ups for the chest, for the arms. I forget what's next. I think it's, so we have a core exercise, great for the abdominal region, the lower back. And these are simple things that people can do. We can modify them in different ways by different special exercises, but this is an idea of some of the things that can go into a activity-based program that you can kind of do at home. That make sense? Right? Giving you guys an idea of things that are out there.
With resistance training though, like the bands,
Yeah.
form is important, isn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So that's tricky if you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah,
It's
but
important, I missed that.
Form.
form. Yeah, so
Shape your
doing
body.
things the right and safe way so you don't get hurt. But absolutely, I think the most common thing that I see is people just think they know what they're doing. And this actually goes for people that are closer to my age. So in that like 25 to 34 range, I mean, it's kind of no surprise that it's usually guys who do that because like, oh, I know what I'm doing. I've been doing this since high school. But then they go through a workout with me thinking they know that, and then they're not doing things the right way. And then they say, oh, my back hurts every time I do that. And I'm like, well, no duh. But that's a good point. And you always want to make sure that things you're doing aren't hurting you. If things are hurting you, you have two options, right? One, seek a fitness professional who can help you with the form to do things the right way. Or if it's really bad and it's impeding your just regular activities of daily living, get it looked at by a medical person. Kind of one of those things where get the okay from them, they might say, hey, it just needs to get work, just needs to strengthen, or you need to do a couple stretches. But it's good to have that confirmation. So here we have a little bit more on kind of those alternative exercises. So a couple of you guys brought up, what can I do if my knee hurts, what options exist. So we have yoga, Pilates, Tai Chi, water aerobics, but also stretching and flexibility. Again, I think sometimes it does sound very confusing when you hear something, do X amount of minutes of activity per day. But also, what if there's a day that you just don't want to? Because that happens, right? Motivation ebbs and flows. It rises when you get started, have that middle ground where it kind of dip, where it's kind of plateau, might dip and then come back up. So these are some things that you might be able to incorporate to keep variation high. So you're always doing something maybe different. And I think as you get older, you want to have things that are going to keep you engaged doing different things. Because our bodies tend to deteriorate when either we stop moving or we do the same thing over and over and over again. So then we run into overuse injuries. Muscles that are just overworked, they're too tired, they're always activated, they're not able to let go. So things like stretching can help offset some of that stuff. But also do things like blood flow, move things around, and it's just also good. It can be more therapeutic mentally as well. And a lot of these also do have some backing on how they affect our quality of life. Things like yoga, Pilates, Tai Chi might not be just getting you super out of breath, but they're good for the muscles to go through ranges of motion. It's good for the blood just to kind of move around in different areas, and good for the mind to kind of do things a little bit differently. So we talked about a little bit more about planning ahead earlier on. So we know that life is unpredictable, right? I think everyone in this room can agree to that. Life will pull you in different directions when you least expect it. But a good rule to shoot from is at the very least, shoot for like 3 days a week of additional activity. So this additional activity is on top of your, that need. So if you're someone who is like myself, who's active based on their job, I shoot for at least 3 days a week where I'm doing something on top of my job. If you're someone like who's behind like a desk worker, maybe works in a cubicle or is sitting down all day long for their job, maybe you want to do a little bit more because you have to account for that. So it's kind of finding the balance and what's going to fit. But a good rule of thumb is kind of shooting for 3 days a week of any one of the type of these things. So like I said, we have our moderate exercise, things like bike rides, swimming. We have our option for a little harder group training, like that gets your heart rate elevated a little bit more. The group training can be an example of that, or a spin class, that kind of stuff. And then we have our strength training, the resistance training, whether it's with bands, whether it's with machines, or dumbbells that you might have at the house. I would like to always tell people to prepare ahead of time, right? Pack clothes, pack a snack, pack your headphones. If you work out without headphones, it can be really boring and really you're in your head and it's not fun. At least for my take. But also have a backup plan if need be. Right? More so, I gave a similar presentation like this in the winter. And with winter, you have, what if the snow closes the roads? What if I can't get to the gym or can't get to my yoga class? What can I do instead? There's YouTube, right? You can do YouTube classes. You can do YouTube workouts with body weight. You can be as specific as you want to be. You can type in age ranges. You can type in with bad knees, or if I had shoulder surgery, let's say I had a common one like a rotator cuff surgery. I can type in at-home exercises for a rotator cuff surgery, that kind of stuff, so I can keep moving, stay active, and have an option. And I always think, right, consistency, not perfection. Right? We're not going to be able to be perfect every single time, but we do have an opportunity to be as consistent as we can be. And that consistency is going to range from a lot of different ways based on what your goals are, how much you want to make a change. Some people want to make a little amount of change. Some people want to make a drastic change. And that's kind of finding the balance between how much you're capable, you're ready, willing, and able to do, and using these things to kind of make it all happen. So some do's and don'ts, just avoid other risk factors. Smoking, excessive alcohol consumption, poor diet, and excessive lack of sleep. Plan your workout days ahead of time. Determine how long, so you know what to account for and how to kind of figure out what's the best option for me based on what I'm trying to do. Increase that step count as a way to increase your overall physical activity throughout the day. Has anybody or everybody heard that 10,000 steps is the magic number for? Yeah, you've heard that before.
Yeah.
So that number is not necessarily anything magic. It's a good target to shoot for, but I always tell people I just want to see you doing more. And that if you're, let's say, doing 4,000 steps, let's see if we can get you to 6,000 steps. If you're doing 6,000, maybe we can then work you to 8,000. So it's finding ways where we can incorporate more steps throughout the day, more just physical activity.
Well, I
Yes.
heard like 10,000 was, you'd lose weight. That was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and it's I would say it can, especially if you're eating in a little bit we call it caloric deficit, so eating less than your companion. And it's a good way because I think things like that are just like standard across the board. It's easy for people to remember. I can say that to a room of 10 people or 10,000 people, aim for 10,000 steps per day, and people are gonna gravitate toward that pretty easily. But I think it gets a little confused, a little more difficult for people to wrap their heads around. Okay, what is more? Like, how do I just do a little bit more?
But that's 10,000 steps, like you're saying that you would do besides your
That's
steps.
included, so that's everything.
Everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if let's say 5,000 with everyday activity,
Yeah.
and then let's say there's another 1,000 from walking, total 6,000. If I do 8,000 from just everyday activity, I get 2,000 from doing a long walk. Now I go ahead and get 10,000. So that's a combination of everything,
Okay,
not just one versus the other.
right, okay,
A little more manageable that way.
yeah.
And again, and then by default, by increasing your step count, increasing your calories you're burning per day. And I guess lastly is kind of like, stay the course, right? Stay the course so you can go ahead and continue, like I said before, like staying in this healthy mindset, staying in this routine is more important than just doing it for a month to make your doctor happy, right? You gotta make yourself happy, make your family happy, and go through those types of things. Because that's the whole reason why we want to make sure we have a quality of life, a high quality of life. So summary, right? Physical activity is powerful. It can really drastically help reduce your risk of diseases, especially these lifestyle-related diseases. There's more than one way to stay active for your health. There's a lot of different things you can do. I always throw this phrase in there wherever I can. Failing to plan is planning to fail. There has to be some thought behind what you're trying to do. Otherwise, you're just kind of throwing blindly darts at a dartboard, hoping one sticks. So being a little bit more targeted with that dart throw will be a little bit easier for you to kind of maintain something so that you can actually fit it in and kind of get and stay fit for life. So a couple last things just to kind of wrap it up here so we have some time for questions. If you do want help with this kind of stuff, I do have personal training that I do, as well as nutrition counseling as well. I'm going to send you guys all emails and stuff so you'll have it, but here's my contact information as well. Email, website, then if I'll send this to you guys in an ebook in the email, but I have a nutrition book as well. Very similar mindset, a very similar concept, but it's not anything crazy, but it's just showing you guys how to create actionable steps to incorporate to have better eating and nutrition habits. And just as a bonus for taking time out of your day to be here with me, anyone who does want to partake in any kind of training will get for 2 free sessions on it, just as a thank you for taking time.
Is the training in a certain location or?
Fairfield.
I'm sorry?
Fairfield. Right off of Passaic Ave. Yeah. So thank you. Who's got questions?
Do you come to somebody's home? Do you?
I used to in the past, not anymore. Just schedule's a little busy and it's
Alright.
tougher to coordinate. Where are you located?
Roseland.
Oh, okay. Mhm.
Roseland. I wanted to have like differences, like, and well, you'd address that. Differences with seniors,
Mhm.
myself, who have various aches and pains,
Mhm.
and younger, or middle age.
Yeah.
There have to be differences.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm sorry, I just didn't know if you were,
Yeah, no,
okay, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, did you guys hear that on that side?
No.
So she asked if, like, correct me if I'm wrong, you know, what differences are there between different age groups, basically?
Yeah.
Young kids, adults, middle adults, older seniors, that kind of thing. And absolutely, I think a lot of it comes down to figuring out, you know, what they A, want to accomplish, but also B, what their history, exercise history, and
Okay.
injury history is. I was fortunate enough to spend a lot of time working alongside like physical therapists. So a lot of the stuff I pull from them helps make exercises more comfortable for people who might have shoulder pain, shoulder discomfort,
Right, right.
back, knee, hip, whatever it could be.
Exactly. That's-
So it's really making sure that we find a way to fit an exercise to the person
Yeah.
versus trying to force a person's body to do something that they're not capable of or they're just uncomfortable doing. But just one more point on that. On this one, for example, like this here, the resistance band one,
Yeah,
those tend to be a little bit more joint friendly. As opposed to something with like a machine, something where you have to use a
Yeah.
lot of weight. These ones here, they're easier to get to move around.
Right.
They're easier to get started.
yeah,
And that makes it a little bit more joint friendly as opposed to using a dumbbell or any other kind of free weight type exercise.
okay,
Does that make sense?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, lots.
Dorothy, you have one, right?
Yes, a question on, do you have any broad suggestions about nutrition?
Yeah.
What you should or shouldn't do, or what probably we're all doing that we shouldn't, or what we should, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So actually, I think it was from here. No, I gave one. It was, where was it? I gave a basically, imagine this whole, I'll send it to you guys too, this whole presentation, but nutrition format. So, but long story short, I was in Lincoln Park, that's where it was. But it basically, when we're looking at nutrition, generally, if I were to be stopped on the street, what can I do tomorrow to start eating better? I would say it boils down to three things. I want to eat whole food, so eat food that's not ultra processed and not in a package. A lot of different ways you can realize and figure out where a food lies on that. But if it came like from the ground, like if it came from the earth, if it was just one source, then it's probably going to be a whole food. If it was something that was made together, combined together with different things, that might be more of a processed food. So we have eat whole food, we have eat the right amount. So not eating to the point where I'm stuffed every single time I eat. Not eating to the point where I feel like I ate too much. Kind of stopping when I'm like 90% full, not necessarily like I overeat. So if you imagine like every meal shouldn't feel like Thanksgiving dinner. Thanksgiving dinner, where I see Barbara, right? Probably she's laughing in the back there. But it's Thanksgiving dinner, like you have your turkey, your cranberry sauce, your stuffing. You eat a lot of food, right? If every meal you have on a day-to-day basis makes you feel like that, then we might want to scale it back a little bit more. So it's eat whole food, not eating too much, not eating to the point where you're stuffed, eating to the point where you're satisfied. Then my third one is pick a eating style that's consistent for you. Because you can lose weight pretty rapidly by just cutting out a whole lot of stuff, but it might not be enjoyable. And once you go back to the way you were eating before, chances are very high you're going to gain the weight back and then some. So kind of finding the balance between, okay, what are the foods the way of eating that I like to do? Some people it's vegetarian, some people it's more of a moderation approach, some people it's a lot of maybe more like animal like protein and like meats, dairy, eggs, that kind of stuff. Some people it's more in the middle, but it's finding ways that kind of checks those three boxes of whole food, not eating too much, and staying consistent with it. That's, yeah.
And what is your feeling on the protein, all these protein shakes, or what else do they go on? Energy
Drinks. I would say they're different things. Protein shakes I look at as like a meal, a snack.
Excuse me, but this is
but-
not making it, buying it.
Yes, no, I know.
Yeah,
But, I mean, I have them. I have protein shakes. I think they're convenient. And I think they also could be something that helps people get more calories in if they need to. So protein can be tough for some people to get, whether it's dietary preferences, or whether it's they just don't feel like eating, they're not as hungry a lot, maybe certain medication you're on messes your appetite up a little bit, so you don't feel that desire to eat. But a protein shake of some kind might be pretty beneficial to help you, especially as you get older, right? Your protein requirements tend to go up a little bit more, just to preserve the muscle, the bones, the joints, the skin, the skin, hair, nails that you have, right? All that stuff becomes more important to hold on to. So combination of that, but also the resistance training and strength training can be helpful to really maintain that stuff.
good to know.
Yes.
What about sugar? No matter what I read, it's like this panic of sugar. Everything has sugar.
Yeah.
Stay away from sugar, no matter what, you know.
I think a lot of it comes down to,
And I'm not talking like desserts, I'm talking like the white stuff, right?
so that's kind of what I was going to bring up. I think a
Yeah.
lot of times people use the term sugar as an umbrella term and not really know what it really is, because sugar is just a molecule, right? It's just a combination of carbon atoms. I don't want to get too like nerdy here, but carbon atoms, hydrogen atoms, and oxygen. That's what a sugar is, but people use the term sugar to kind of scare people a little bit. But technically, like if I were to say like whole grain bread, right? That's something I think a lot of people might agree is like a healthy alternative than white bread. There's still sugar in that whole grain bread because it's part of the carbohydrate that's in there. But sugar from the sense of like candy, sweets, desserts, that kind of stuff is the stuff that I think is definitely something to save for special occasions.
You're like sweet potato, regular potatoes.
So yes,
Yes.
that's where it, but for people like everybody here who just wants to like be healthy and have a good background, feel like they're in control, it gets confusing. My personal opinion is that stuff's kind of secondary to the calories you're consuming, the type of food you're consuming, and how consistent you are. Because there's a lot of information where they kind of compare different things, and a lot of times it's weight loss, it's things like blood sugar, it's things like blood tests like cholesterol or HDL, LDL, triglycerides, things you might see in your doctor's blood panel. When things are compared and calories are the same, whole food is the same, there's exercise on top of it, tend to be very similar. So it's, in my opinion, I don't necessarily think like stuff like whole food carbohydrate sugars are bad, because there's vegetarians and vegans who eat that stuff all the time. They're very healthy. But then you have people who I think kind of use that and spin it to fit something that they're trying to promote, and then it's all about the green.
Yeah.
So, but good point though. Does that answer it, or does that make you more confused?
No, it's not more confusing.
Okay, the same amount of confusion.
Well,
Yeah.
so let's learn.
Yeah, but no, but I would say more than if it's whole food, if it's, you know, not overdoing it in the amount of food you're having, chances are pretty
Moderation.
high, moderation, you're gonna be
Yeah.
okay.
Okay,
You know?
thank you.
Yeah. What else? Anything else?
That was good information.
Glad. Glad. Cool. Thank you very much for coming.